ChatGPT 3 versus the latest version that we are having, you'll see that it's able to do a much better job. A lot of people were paranoid that computers are gonna completely remove the human and there's not gonna be any opportunity in the banks, for example. No, I mean it's always man and machine combined. It's not either or. And some of the people are really paranoid that the machines are going to take over the world and it's going to be a Terminator like situation. I don't think so, right? Because it's the human reasoning, the problem solving cannot be replicated, right? So wherever you are having some sort of newer problems and different ways of looking at the things, we will need people to be involved in that, but they can probably make a better decision, faster decision, more efficient problem solving by leveraging some of the AI solutions that we have.
Hi everyone, welcome to Mobile App Daily. Today in the tech series, we have one of the best minds in data science in India, Ratnakar Pandey. He has worked with Amazon and has over 2 decades of experience in the field of data science and machine learning. So, thank you, Ratnakar Pandey, for joining us today. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you, Anubhav, for having me here.
So, you have a total experience of 2 decades of rich and diverse experience in data science, in tech, retail, fintech. So, give us little insight about how and where this journey started.
Sure. Yeah. So my journey with data science actually started in a very, very interesting way. So it wasn't necessarily by choice. It was more by a necessity, right? And I will give you more color on that. So when I actually went in for my master's in the US, people told me that if you want to get a job in the industry that I was actually aspiring for, in the tech industry, particularly in the semiconductor industry, knowing coding and knowing statistics will be very, very important, right? So I did my master's in the semiconductor engineering, and I was targeting a company called Texas Instruments. And I happened to crack that interview and actually go for that role. But it was on the basis of all the data science skills and the knowledge that I have picked up during my master's, right? So that's how I actually started.
So, I understand that you are an AI consultant. So, how do you see the artificial intelligence evolving in the coming years?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So, I mean, I think AI is the talk of the town now. Everybody is talking about the Chat GPT. Even people who don't have anything to do with the AI are also using it, right? The kids are using it for their homework, right? So, this is high time that people are actually getting involved in AI, and I think it's gonna be very, very interesting next 5 to 10 years, right? And some of the experts in the industry are also agreeing that the pace at which the AI evolution is happening is actually beyond anyone's expectation or prediction, right? And it is just going to multiply from over here, right? So I think, I mean, you will see more of these tools coming in the market, whether for the image recognition, for doing the automated speech recognition, for having a conversational bot, right? And more players will jump in as well, right? So right now we are all aware of OpenAI and some of the other big players, right? So you will have companies like Amazon and Google also coming in, right? So Google already has BART, which they have released. Amazon language model is also in making, right? So you'll see more and more tech companies coming in. The only reason why they haven't launched their product just now is they want to make sure that in terms of the some of the other legal ethical angle, I mean they're taking care of those aspects, right? But it will be very, very important time. But like I said, I mean it's also going to be very interesting in terms of the whole regulatory and the ethical nuances around the AI solutions.
Yeah. So, as you said, ChatGPT is the talk of the town. Everybody's talking about it, and people are saying that the growth that they are seeing in this AI space is beyond their expectation. So, there's also a saying that AI will soon take over the world. So, what is the architecture of such AI tools, and how does it processes such natural language?
Yeah, absolutely. So most of these tools, particularly from the language point of view, are based on what we call as a generative pre-trained transformer model, right? and they are large language models. So they have been trained on petabytes of information, like any article, any news, any website that you have on the internet, probably they have seen it, right? And they have been trained on this using some of the neural network or deep learning neural network architecture, which basically is a combination of unsupervised learning, that the tools are not necessarily told what to do next, and they will actually make the next word prediction in the sequence, right? So that's the basic construct behind that, right? And they sort of like, so prior to these transformer models, we used to have what we call as a recurrent neural network, which will be a sequence of word. So the transformers are actually doing much better than the RNNs, and they can go to any number of words in the like the sentence prior to the word that we're looking at, and they are very very good in terms of doing that, right? And then throw in the large compute and some of the architectural advances that we have made, and you have something as good as ChatGPT, which is a very very natural human language like communicator, right? So the short answer there is, generative pre-trained transformer model, trained on billions of data sources out there and many many different parameters that they are having, and a combination of unsupervised learning, supervised learning, and also reinforced learning.
Yeah. Okay. So, OpenAI launched ChatGPT 3, I guess, a couple of years back. And then back also, there was a lot of talk about this new AI chatbot. So, have you seen any difference between ChatGPT 3 and ChatGPT 4, which is recently launched?
Yeah. So I think the main difference will be in the accuracy, right? And particularly for some of the languages, non-English languages, particularly, right? So ChatGPT 3 versus the latest version that we are having, you will see that it's able to do a much better job in, let's say, Indian languages like Telugu, Kannada, Tamil, Marathi. All of those languages are also something that it has been trained on, compared to the previous model where it was mostly trained on English and some of the other languages like French and German. So the accuracy will be something that you can definitely see a boost on. And then also, I think more and more tools will now be able to take out any sort of negatives around it, right? Because it has been trained on all the data which is there on the internet. So how do we really make sure that it has been trained on clean data, right? So that's another difference that you'll see coming in terms of some of the newer tools. But yeah, it continues to evolve. So I've personally not tried the GPT-4 yet, but I think based on whatever papers I have read, I mean, some of those gains can be definitely something that we can look forward to.
Okay, that sounds really interesting. So I want to understand one thing that many people are talking about the employment which is going to affected by these AI tools which are being launched. So what do you think? What are the careers that are going to be most affected by these AI tools?
Yeah, so I think it's gonna be a double-edged sword, Nuga, right? So some jobs will be definitely removed, and I think IBM also made a public announcement that they are cutting some 9,000 odd jobs, and they are replacing that with AI solution, right? They didn't mention whether it's gonna be GPT or something else, but maybe some in-house solution, maybe a combination of that, right? So definitely, things which can be done completely in an automated way by a tool like ChatGPT or something else of similar nature will be the jobs which will be at risk, right? And it's already happening. And there are varied degree of the effect that people are forecasting, but I think definitely you can imagine that if it is something that can be completely automated without any negative consequences, it will be removed. At the same time, I am of the belief that just like with when the computers came in, a lot of people were paranoid that computers are going to completely remove the human and there's not going to be any opportunity in the banks, for example. No, I mean, it's always, man and machine combined. It's not either or. And some of the people are really paranoid that the machines are going to take over the world and it's going to be a Terminator like situation. I don't think so, right? Because it's the human reasoning, the problem solving cannot be replicated, right? So wherever you are having some sort of newer problems and different ways of looking at the things, we will need people to be involved in that, but they can probably make a better decision, faster decision, more efficient problem solving by leveraging some of the AI solutions that we have. So the short answer is that everybody should learn how to use some of these AI tools, and don't be worried and scared about their jobs because something is going to come and take away their job. You have to start learning those things and become better at it.
Okay. So what I understand is that moving forward, we'll see humans and AI tools interacting and performing even better. So what are some emerging technologies that you believe will have a big impact on the world in near future?
Yeah. So, like the whole generative AI is one area, and within that, probably in my view, I think you'll see development happening on two fronts. One will be the whole natural language, right, which is the obviously the best fitting candidate in terms of the large language model. And when I say natural language, it is both for the spoken as well as the written language. Right now, you may say that okay, bots have been existing for many many years. I mean, any bank site you go, you'll have a chat bot, right, or you'll have a IVR sort of messages and so on and so forth, right? But they're not very conversational. They're very static, and they normally frustrate the customer who they are actually talking to, right? So you'll see there will be a step up improvement, or actually many many fold higher improvement in terms of their conversational pattern, right? And they will be able to understand what you're saying, and they can have a conversation in real time. So that's one area definitely I think that will be coming in, and you will see more and more players adopting that as well. That you will have conversational bots and both chat as well as voice bots to interact with you, and that will take away some of the human intervention in terms of the customer service, and that will also have a positive impact on the customer. That you don't have to necessarily wait for an associate. I mean, how many times we call and we are in a queue, that your wait time is 7 minutes or 10 minutes and so on and so forth, right? Not anymore. I think when you'll see that some of these things can be outrightly be addressed by a bot, and you'll have a timely resolution, right? The other thing I can foresee is the computer vision, right? And computer vision is a much, much, much harder problem to solve than NLP. It's not to say that NLP is an easy problem to solve, but computer vision is the next level, right? And I think some of the developments which are happening in the computer vision area will be also something that will be very, very exciting for all of us to, look forward to. Tally and some of the other things that we are already seeing happening in the market will definitely have a bigger impact on the computer vision, right? So that will translate into more and more automated things. It would also mean that you'll have more people looking into the self-driving car as an option, right? I mean, right now it is still like very very niche market. I mean, only in developed countries, and that too, very expensive cars are providing that functionality. You'll see that becomes more and more common even in places like India, and I think already some of the top SUV manufacturers are having those sort of self-driving options available. Not completely. I mean, you cannot have a car which drives on its own completely just yet in India, but at least some functionalities. Yeah,
Okay. So everybody is talking about ChatGPT, and businesses don't want to miss the opportunity to ride this wave. So how do you assess whether a particular business problem is suitable for an AI solution or not?
right. That's a great question again, and this is a constant problem that I sort of address with my stakeholders, right? My suggestion or my way of looking at this in terms of the whole mental framework is that try to go for something simple. If it can be done in Excel, for example, and you can write a script to do it, and that is going to address the business need, let that be the solution. So you don't have to necessarily look out for the most complex thing in terms of the AI and try to offer it to your stakeholders, right? Which is some of the mistakes that I've seen people making just because they are aware of certain things and they would like to force fit that solution. So always think from the point of view of simplicity. Simpler the solution, better it is, right? So I mean, unless you want to really are trying to solve a very very complex problems, I mean, you don't necessarily need to look out for the most complex solution as well, right? Simple is also transparent. You know exactly what is happening, why it's happening. You can always do the reverse engineering. You can always customize and all of those things. So, if a business rule of if heuristic or any sort of simple algorithm is able to solve the problem, then let it be the case, right? But as you See, our world is not that simple. I mean, it's multi-dimensional. A lot of players are at the play at the same time. A lot of moving pieces and a lot of complexities, right? So, given that situation, a lot of times you will be better off by leveraging an AI solution, right? Like I said, I mean, you have to always balance the speed in terms of how quickly you can implement, what is going to be the customer impact, what is going to be the regulatory framework that you should be aware of, and how you're going to be placed in that, right? How cost effective the solution is going to be, right? I mean, ChatGPT and other softwares may offer a lot of different things, but is it going to be a free of cost? Probably not, right? I mean, if you want to get their API access and stuff like that, it is going to cost you some amount, right? Versus some of the free solutions. So it's always a cost benefit trade off that you have to really do and see, what makes more sense. With the mental model of simple is beautiful. You don't have to overcomplicate things.
Okay. So after companies have recognized the problem and where they can implement AI, so what are some challenges that companies face while implementing AI, and how do you help them overcome these challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the things are quite basic, right? So for example, not having the right access to talent. And I know it's sort of like, very ironical that we're talking about AI everywhere. And yet people are there on LinkedIn, they're looking out for opportunities and they're not finding things, right? So because the expectation that we have in the corporate world versus what is being offered as of now, there is a gap in terms of the skills that they are actually coming in with, right? So even somebody who's doing a simple spreadsheet analysis may call themselves as a data scientist, right? I'm not saying there's not, anything wrong with that, but then when you go and talk to an employer, they have a very, very different set of expectations. So I think that's where the whole upskilling and the cross skilling of the existing workforce and the people who are coming new from the college really is the need of the hour, right? And that's where companies and the people are struggling as well, that they're not able to fill out the position very, very quick. One area that I will definitely say is going to be something which will be difficult for people to implement unless they address that, right? The other one I would have is the connection between the business impact to the AI. So AI cannot work in isolation, right? Or your technical skills cannot work in isolation. You have to always think from the business stakeholders and the business impact point of view, and then take that business problem and bring it to the AI problem, right? A lot of people make that mistake that they do not necessarily try to sort of quantify what is going to be the impact of their work that they're doing, right? So it's always very, very important that if you want to make the AI projects happen, talk the business language, right? Do not say that I'm going to build this beautiful automated speech recognition model. So what are we going to do with this, right? I mean, what is going to be the impact, how the businesses are going to use it, what exactly is going to be the efficiency gain, cost saving, revenue impact. You have to translate that into a business end goal in terms of top line and bottom line. That's where things will really happen. And that's another hurdle that people face, right? The third area that I would highlight is data scientists and AI professionals cannot work in isolation. So they need to be very, very collaborative with the product team, with marketing team, and particularly with the data engineering team, right? So three things. One is talent. Second one is the business impact. And the third one is the dependencies on making the tech happen for you.
Okay. So you also spoke about the data sets on which these AI tools are being trained on.
Yeah.
And there's also a discussion about the ethical aspect of these AI models. So
Yeah.
how do you ensure that these AI models are transparent, ethical, and unbiased?
Right. Yeah. I would be very, very careful in taking anything off the shelf and deploying it directly. So I think you need to bring in your local context. You need to train, even if you're using some sort of chat GPT, I mean, bring in your own context, bring in your own data to train it on and make it better, right? You should be very, very sensitive that whatever parameters you're training the model on, none of those parameters will be something which can be called as objectionable. Let me give you an example, right? Like age, for example, cannot be used in a credit risk scoring model, right? So when you are supposed to be giving a loan to a particular customer, you cannot give it on the basis of the age, whether they are young or old and all of that. That will be called a discrimination, right? But now what may happen is that I may have a model which is not looking at the age, but maybe looking at the length of the credit history, how long they have been having a credit card or a loan account, and that becomes a proxy for your age, right? Or I can have the total work X of the person, how many years they've been working in the professional life, and that can become again a proxy for the age. So you have to be looking out for those variables, which may not be something which your regulation and ethics and other aspects that you're trying to balance do not allow, but also whether they are proxy of something which is not allowed, right? And that's why we used to do something called as a disparate impact analysis in the financial world, which is you may have built a neutral model, but then you have to really see the outcome of the model. So if I see that my model has been lending more to a particular race or ethnicity versus not lending to another gender or ethnicity or race, right? So that's where you will see, there might be certain things which are there in your model that you don't understand, but they are creating a disparate impact, and we have to really understand that, right? So one is obviously be careful from the model training phase. The second one is after you have trained and deployed the model, when you are getting the data points, be very, very flexible and agile to rework the model to remove any disparate impact.
Okay. So, on one hand, AI tools are so revolutionary that it can help anyone to make their task more easy. But on the other hand, we are seeing that these AI tools can also be used for cyber crimes. So, how should companies deal with it? How should they make sure that the AI models or the data which they are using for their training purposes is not being misused?
Right. So that is something similar to with any new technology which comes in, right? So when UPI came in, I mean, a lot of people were victim of the fraud, right? I mean, so they didn't know, I mean, whether they had to put in their, the four-digit PIN when doing the money transfer, and that was a function of lack of awareness, right? So I think we have to be more proactive in terms of creating that awareness, making sure that people are aware of the some of the risk associated with the AI, right? And we all need to be playing our role, right? So when we know that we have spotted something which looks, sort of like offensive, or which looks like a fraud activity, we know that this is not the truth, right? We should sort of like highlight those things. When I say we, I mean all of us digitally, and then all the entities like a corporate, government agencies, regulators, and everybody will have to play that role in terms of keeping it clean, right? And the most important responsibility will be on the people who are developing these tools, rather than trying to develop, because we have a popular saying in the data science world or AI world, garbage in, garbage out. So if you train it on the wrong information, you'll get the wrong answers, right?
How do you differentiate your product or service from
Right.
competitors in the market?
So I think one of the main things that I think about is, and this goes back to some of the learnings I took away from Amazon, and they call themselves as day one company and one of the most customer centric company, right? So I think, I mean, it's very, very important that you think customer backwards. Do not think from your product and solutions point of view. Think from the customer's needs and wants. What is the problem statement that you're trying to solve for the customer? And are you doing it in the most efficient fashion, right? In the cheapest possible way, the best quality that you can offer them, right? So if you have that, you don't have to necessarily worry too much about the competition, right? And even though, I mean, it's very, very important to keep an eye on your competition, I think it's more important to really hear to those customer anecdotes, to the pain points, the joy that you're trying to create for the customer, and try to develop the best possible solution from that part of it, right? So I think, I mean, that's how some of the successful startups have been able to, scale their operations very, very quickly without needing to pivot into something different or iterating over the product, because they were able to pinpoint that this is the problem I'm trying to solve. And they really did a lot of back testing, a lot of talking to the customers and the focus group discussions to really figure out whether there's a need for this in the market, right? And I think that has to be the way forward for anything that we're doing. And there are tons of problems to be solved. But what really happens is that we don't define that problem very, very crisply. I mean, we might be building a product which is addressing something completely different. So we have to be very clear that what is it this product or solution trying to address, and how big is that market, and how big is that problem statement, and how our product or solution is going to help in that regard.
Very briefly, can you give us three tips for young people who are aspiring for careers in AI or data science?
Yeah. So the first tip will be to talk to the people who are already doing that work, right? And people who have been doing that work for a certain period of time, and see whether you like their lifestyle or not, right? I think, I mean, that's the best thing that they can do in terms of before getting into it, right? The second thing that I would recommend to for these folks to do is to don't upfront pay for any certificates, any degree, any program. Try to do some of the work free of cost on their own and see, how they are actually getting it, right. Try to also find a mentor, like who can help them, guide them in terms of what are the swim lanes they should be part of, right. So just in terms of, first is, awareness that you know what you're getting into. Second is, how do you really get comfortable, which is where, I mean, having a mentor, having some of the free resources to go through will be very, very important. And the third is, once you decided to get in, then you should not be in a hurry that by within a month I will be master of everything. That's not going to happen. Takes,
And
yeah,
earn
it
a
takes
lot of
years
money.
and years to really get to that level, right? And you'll see some people will naturally build fantastic models, other will, despite the compute you give them, despite the machines you give them, they are not able to do it because it's sort of like, learning on the job. So be prepared that it's not going to be, sprint. It's going to be a marathon where you have to constantly learn, and then you'll be coming up to the level where you can be calling yourself as a senior data scientist.
Thank you, P. I hope these tips will be really helpful for our young viewers.
Absolutely.
Lastly, but not the least, I want you to give advice for aspiring startup founders who are just getting started and how they can incorporate AI and data science in the idea they have.
So one of the things that I see people do, particularly founders who don't have AI background or who don't have an AI team member or data science team member, is that they will sort of pretend that I don't need it, right? Until things, the water is still here, right? And that's where they're actually trying to put together an AI strategy and data science strategy. So I think my suggestion or biggest recommendation will be, think about it from day one. Whether or not you do it in day one, that's a different story altogether. But think about it. Have a strategy in place, have a plan in place that when do you want to really bring in some of these skill sets, right? What sort of value you would like to derive from your data that you're having, right? So I understand that if you don't have the data, what the data scientists are going to do. But sooner or later, you will get to the stage where you're going to have this information coming in. And then if you're trying to play the catch up game, it's going to be too late for you because it's a, sort of like, game theory that others are doing it, you're not doing it, then you're going to be left behind. So have that data centricity, have that AI mental model from day one will be very, very important. And I know some of these people will also be very, very intuitive and very, very close to the customers. They know the anecdotes, they have spoken to the customers, right? But it's always good to bounce off some of these anecdotes and intuitive thinking with the data to make sure that decisioning that we're doing, the strategy that we are creating, everything has, some element of data science, some element of analytics, some element of numbers coming in to back it up, right? And be more systematic and organized about it as well, right? So those will be some of the tips I can give.
So thank you so much, RP, for giving us your time and for talking to us. I hope this conversation will be very informative for our viewers also.
Okay, same here. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.